interesting when you're talking about the mini revolution of the last 30 years. You're talking about the transformation of the practice of law and collaborative law practice.
Yes, and I, my work has been predominantly in collaborative law. I see myself in the integrative law world as a broader part of that umbrella, but collaborative is where I got my roots. I started working with families and really understanding the struggles that families had in a divorce. And Webb came up with this idea of collaborative law, which was a way to help families through conflict differently. And it was a transformative thing for me to see what possibilities there were if we just shifted the way we thought about family law. So that was the beginning for me.
What was the big shift?
It's interesting because when Stu came along, he had what was a subtle thing that I didn't fully understand at first. He like so many of us, he knew it had to be done differently. Like many of us who had been to court with families, we realized we were damaging relationships, even though we weren't trying to do that. And not just going to trial, but operating in the shadow of the courthouse. If you operate in a threat-based environment, trying to get people to settle because if they don't settle, a judge will make them settle, doesn't create great agreements for families. It does a lot of damage. And so many of us, so many people have been struggling for years trying to figure out, well, we know it's best not to do it that way. What's the better way? And of course, mediation existed, which was wonderful, but we needed some way for the lawyers, for the advocates to rethink their part of this as well. And when Stu came along with this idea that was, again, so subtle it's easy to miss it, but he said if you created a process in which the lawyers at the very beginning would commit in writing to withdraw if the matter went to court, then you would create a culture in which lawyers would start to rethink their role. That was sort of the promise of it. And I think the part that was subtle is the idea that the lawyers had to be able to withdraw so that they could think outside of it. It was a true paradigm shift, because while most of us thought we were already thinking holistically in wonderful ways, it wasn't until we stepped outside that shadow of the courthouse that we started to really think about what this could be. So that was the initial piece for me. But even then, it took me a while to get a feel for it. And it wasn't until Stu's idea of collaborative law formed up with what they were doing in California, people like Nancy Ross and others doing the collaborative team movement. They were doing a team movement. What their idea was that rather than having just lawyers at the table, we ought to have mental health professionals and financial people, child specialists, people that deal with the whole family, because divorce, as painful as it is really only partly a legal problem. I would guess maybe 30% legal. I mean, most of it is communication, parenting, finance, healing, a lot of things that lawyers care about, but aren't necessarily the ones who are specialized in addressing. So when I started to see how we could team with mental health professionals and financial people, a light bulb went off in my head. I thought, wow, the opportunity to get deeper resolution, not just get people a settlement, but get them something that's going to work. Because I think that's one of the myths in family law, is that we just need to get them a settlement. If we get them a piece of paper, then we've done our job. Well, getting a settlement is only the beginning. That's when their lives are starting. We need to give them resources and ways to start their new lives in a better way. And by integrating all these professions, it became much more exciting for me. I realized we weren't just talking about settlement. We're talking about, as Pauline Tesler talks about, deeper resolution of issues, which I think is key to all of this.